love building stuff with you guys. I'm really excited to be here, and this is where all the magic happens. That's why I have, and it's not Harry Potter, even though they filmed Harry Potter here, apparently, but I tried to put in a little bit of UK stuff throughout the presentation. So with that, we will kick off. First, just a little bit about me. I've been in the industry for the last 7 years, been doing startup small businesses for 13 years, and I spent most of my early career in telecom building really large-scale systems. So done a lot of large enterprise stuff, but also done a lot of small business stuff, startup things as well. And like I said, been in 7 years in blockchain, running engineering departments across various crypto spaces, whether that's exchanges, stable coins, tokenization and trading platforms. Been doing this for quite a while, really enjoy it, really love the industry, really love working with all of you. I thought it'd be good to share a little bit about my philosophy, how I think about things. First of all, love being a leader in technology. I think we all want to be leaders in technology, either be the first to market or quick followers, really kind of drive us forward. Avalanche has a history of being kind of the best tech. That's generally what people think about. So again, really want to maintain that leadership position. 2 is focusing on technology that actually solves real-world problems. Most of my experience, even in the blockchain space, has been either kind of real-world assets, tokenization and trading platforms, those kinds of things. I know there's a market for everybody in the space, but that's generally my background, is solving real-world problems with technology. And last is I really want to stress just a sense of urgency. This is all a race for all of us in the blockchain industry, not just for Avalanche, but what you guys are building, and it's all moving very, very quickly. So I want to make sure we maintain that speed and that velocity and that interest in getting things out the door quickly. Thought I'd start with kind of a really broad, what is good technology? Hopefully a lot of this is already familiar to you. But obviously, it's got to be reliable. It's got to be 24/7 uptime, especially in the crypto or the blockchain space. There are no nights and weekends. It's 24/7. 2 is security. Obviously, again, table stakes as far as I'm concerned. Everything must be highly secure in everything we build. Efficiency of just being very, very environmentally friendly. As you know, Avalanche is one of the best at efficient use of energy. Scalability, so providing high capacity, and the L1s allow you to kind of separate your congestion from others and build separately, which I think is great. Interoperability, as those of you familiar in the space know, we do support interchain messaging and really kind of drive. That's all supported out of the box. You don't have to worry about building all of that from scratch. Customization. Again, which is purpose-built, adaptable. If you're building an L1, you have a lot of customization. I will go through that a little bit later. Low cost, which is something we've been driving lately, really driving fees down. And again, I'll go into a little detail in this in the presentation. And finally, performance. And that's kind of a big focus for us. We need to meet the latency requirements of whether it's gaming or trading or all those kinds of things, all have really low latency requirements, and so making sure that we're building towards that. And then the ones in yellow are really the ones that I'm going to focus on mostly in this talk. But first, since we are in England, we have to get in our TARDIS. I'm assuming you all know what TARDIS is from Doctor Who. Allows us to travel in space and time. So a little bit of history, where we've been. So I tried to figure out how I wanted to talk about kind of what we're doing, what we're building. And I thought maybe a history of how we built this out might be really helpful to explain it. Obviously, the mainnet launched back in 2020. Realized that we need intercarrier messaging. We needed some communication between the chains. And then we launched Avalanche 9000, which was a big push for us, really kind of further separating the subnets from the subnets from the primary network, so that you can build your L1s and not be quite as dependent on the primary network. And finally, changes to the gas fees and reducing the gas fees. So building for Avalanche. What are the different ways I can build on Avalanche? There's a few different ways. These were all kind of around from the beginning of, you can build on the C chain, EVM compatible C chain. Actually, I probably shouldn't stand right in the middle of the. So EVM compatible C chain, no infrastructure needed, and you can build built-in interoperability. And then obviously the layer 1. There's a couple different ways you can build a layer 1. You can do it yourself using the tools that we provide. You can you have full ownership of the deployment process and building and deploying and hosting your own L1s, and there's a lot of customization available, which again I'll cover in a little bit. Or you can use one of our hosting providers. You're going to meet a number of hosting providers throughout the next couple days. Some of them are saying they can deploy an L1 network in under 30 minutes. Doesn't necessarily require you to have any coding, hosting, knowledge, or do any of that stuff. A lot of it's done for you with simple websites, interfaces. And again, it's highly customizable. What are the benefits of launching an L1? First of all, and this I think is the biggest selling point, it's a purpose-built blockchain. You can build it exactly how you want. You have complete control over your blockchain. Two is you're not competing with resources across other projects. As you know, some of the other blockchains, if one of the projects gets really busy, it can impact gas fees or delay kind of your transactions. Building your own L1, you have complete control over the resources and making sure that your transactions and your gas fees remain low. Multiple chains work in unison. I mentioned before kind of some of the interchain messaging. So basically that allows you to do that. And then permissioned or non-permissioned networks. So you have options here on how you deploy your validators. Do you want them to be permissioned or permissionless? You can set your own gas token. You don't have to use a Vox for your gas token. You can use something else and set your own fee structure. And the same thing with the staking incentives. You have complete control over what you're building. You can even choose your own consensus algorithm. We're working on a consensus algorithm that will make it easier for you if you don't want to use the one that we provide out of the box. That I'll talk about a little bit as well. And finally, you can choose your own virtual machine. I think most people are using EVM these days, but if we wanted to, we have the option to be able to build additional VMs. So first of all, interchain messaging, what is it? It's basically an out-of-the-box cross-chain messaging solution. It basically allows you to build cross-chain applications using arbitrary messaging without trusting third parties, which I think is something that's really important from a security perspective. And it does, we do have audited token transfer contracts as well, and you can send assets between the L1s or even through the C chain. Avalanche 9000 was the big thing that launched back in December. I put this picture up because if you've seen any of the marketing ads, they had, I don't know how many different styles. Hey, there's the marketing guy. How many different styles from Chrome and anime and all these things. And I asked him about steampunk, and he didn't do a steampunk one. So this is my attempt at a steampunk Avalanche 9000. Looks good? Can I join marketing? And then, what was Avalanche 9000? Basically, further separation from the L1s. You're less dependent on the primary network. We did change the naming from subnets to L1, so I know sometimes people get confused about, is it a subnet, is it an L1? Basically, everything is migrating towards L1. There is a process to migrate your subnet to an L1 as well. And then significantly less expensive to launch an L1 now because of the validator. You don't need to be a validator for the primary network. And there's the ACP, the primary. There's some other ACPs in Avalanche 9000. This is the primary one. Again, it's about separation. It's about reducing staking costs. Validators needed to stake for the primary network. At that point, it was 2,000 Vox. We've changed all that to now be rent-based. And also now you can do permissionless much easier if that's the path you want to go down. There's flexibility in how you stake. And basically the rewards are up to the subnet. And then came Avalanche Octane, which just launched in February, I believe it was. And this is where we did the dynamic gas fee, dynamic gas limits, and price discovery. So basically cheaper gas fees, better handle, a future increase in network demand. The old way could lead to large spikes in gas prices, which then took a long time to to then drop back down again. And basically, our network was constantly running above the gas target anyway of 15 million gas per second. The minimum gas target was always below dynamic price discovery, so we weren't really hitting dynamic price discovery, even though some of the functionality existed. And if you wanted to change dynamic gas targets, you had to actually go through an ACP process. So the new mechanism, we set a minimum gas price, so the C chain is always in price discovery. Dynamic gas targets are voted live by validators based on new hardware requirements or changes that may need an adjustment. And it basically allows for validation to dynamically adjust the target gas consumption. And the gas fees, if you've been watching them, have been significantly less after this chain, even with some of the increases in transactions. So what's next? By the way, I don't know do you guys watch Rick and Morty at all? This is Meeseeks. Meeseeks, I guess, is created by the button here. He only lives long enough, I don't know if it's he or she, lives long enough to do what they're trying to do, and then they explode. This was actually one of my developers' Slack names, had this as an icon. My first fear was that my developers are going to start exploding, but that wasn't the case. It was actually more of ultra-focused. And so the team is going to be ultra-focused really through the rest of the year. And the question is, on what? We're really focused on making C-Chain the fastest EVM. And a lot of the technology that we're doing with this will also then be available to L1s in the future, but we're really focusing on C-Chain. So where are we going? I think I'm going to go off the stage here. So basically, this is what the roadmap looks like going forward. In July timeframe, we're going to launch. Kind of the internal name is Granite. We haven't come up with a marketing name yet. We'll have to figure that out. But that's going to have async execution, or I think officially streaming async execution. We're also looking to fit Pectra in there for those of you familiar with Ethereum, being able to support Pectra. We're also looking to get into Granite. And then by the end of the year, Firewood. So many of you may have heard about Firewood over the years. This project is finally coming to fruition, and that will be out this year. Dynamic state sync, which is really required for Firewood. We're focusing on kind of reduced disk growth and being more efficient in the disk usage. And then we have one of our developers working on Simplex, which is what I mentioned before, the new consensus algorithm for small validator sets. So ACP 194, this one was just ran through on Friday. And by the way, I think we had the largest turnout we ever have for an ACP meeting, so really love the participation from the community. Decouples consensus from execution, and really only the lightweight verification takes place before consensus, and all the execution happens after consensus. So we expect to get kind of a decent performance boom or increase from launching Granite. Firewood, and by the way, these engineers are all going to be speaking the next couple of days, so you can ask all kinds of detailed questions of them about this. But Firewood, database optimized for storing Merkleized blockchain state, and basically it uses the tri-E structure instead of LSM trees, and it reduces the overhead of all the complexity of translating back and forth for inserting, modifying, storing, and deleting. Provides significant improvement over Geth and implements some of the Ethereum hash compatibility and support required for dynamic state sync interfaces. Dynamic state sync, basically the current syncing algorithms, that's an initial target, and then syncs the data to the block, relies on networking to provide consistent checkpoints where the full state's available. So basically we are updating that. So basically the client is syncing as the data is changing and removing the dependency of historical state during syncing. And again, this sets us up well for some of the other performance improvements. Also looking at reduced disk growth. Again, reference Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, deep thought. So basically we're reducing the size of the computer that needs to be required, so you don't need deep thought anymore. We're not storing anything in disk that's not required, and these are some of the changes we're making there. So efficiently indexing the required data, using a specialized block store rather than pushing blocks to the level DB, using Firewood, which you mentioned already. Validators will be able to prune blocks, transactions, receipts, and logs, and eliminating nonces by adding time limit envelope to transactions. Simplex is the consensus algorithm for L1s. Basically, it's our new alternative for small validator sets. It will improve the liveness and consistency, and it's better user experience when a portion of the stake is offline, and faster transaction confirmation. So this, like I said, the original Snow consensus wasn't really built for the small validator sets. This is a custom consensus algorithm for that. I wanted to mention briefly developer relations. So Martin, who you already met, was part of the developer relations team. Some of the things that are going on there, obviously they work closely with the builders through all phases of setup, maintenance. I'm sure many of you have interacted with them if you've been building on Avalanche. And really the team has done a really nice job, and we've got a lot of positive feedback about them. There's a couple things that we're working to make that experience better. One is we're just kind of overall working on an improved developer experience. We're going to increase our focus and start to build some dedicated teams and things around making sure we have the best developer experience. Some of that will result in kind of the builder hub changes to make it easier to find a documentation and go where you're trying to go, and just kind of improving some of the tools in general. And then better defining the structure of our service support processes and procedures. Just being clear about when to use which social networks, how to communicate, how to get information and support. And finally, kind of how you can help. I always like to include something about that. So there's a few things you can do. One is, I mentioned the ACPs. Love the community to communicate or to interact with us. Tell us, what you think about the things we're building, what you think is important. And attending or participating in these is a great way to do that. Just continue to give feedback to all of us. Introduce yourself while you're here. We have some of our best engineers here who are building all the things that I was just talking about. They're the ones that do all the magic. So we're all here. So feel free to stop by, talk about your project, or if you have questions about any of the engineering we're building or suggestions, happy to hear it. That's it.